would you believe that for Realcomm Live, they're going to leave us unsupervised?
I know, it's a little scary.
No one moderating?
If they could see how many people are out in the audience, it would be it's a little different in boot camp, isn't it?
It is a little bit different than boot camp.
How many years have we been doing boot camp?
At least 10 years. I've been doing it myself for 8 years.
8 years. And buildings have just become more complex when it comes to technology than less, wouldn't you say?
It hasn't gotten simpler, no.
It hasn't gotten simpler.
Digital transformation accelerating, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
It's great to see some of the success stories of previous folks that have been down the journey. But to me, the boot camp, the intelligibility boot camp, is not just for beginners anymore, right? Would you say it's more for folks that are trying to understand all the elements of the journey? Because I think it's you that says a lot of times we meet you where you are, right? And a lot of folks are at different spots on that journey, which usually starts with just mapping out the technology that's in your building.
Yeah, we get a lot of our alumni who come into the panel who've kind of been in the seat of the audience and kind of learned some lessons and accelerated it across portfolios with either technologies or services. And they've really come a long way, and they're happy to share those lessons with the folks in the crowd. One of our speakers was Travis Foki, Senior Vice President, Allied Properties REIT.
Yeah.
And he actually said that one of the keys for him was to cut through the noise of all the prop tech, to try and simplify, to make some decisions on where he was going to go or how to guide the business. And so having someone who's kind of been there, done that, or sharing some lessons from experienced folks really helps the folks in the boot camp to see the breadth and depth of the content, because it can be pretty easy to get overwhelmed with the technology, with the AI topic deep dive, or you go right down the rabbit hole on fault detection, diagnostics, analytics, or cybersecurity, or user experience applications. And so what we have done in the boot camp is really try to give everybody a mile wide and an inch deep. Give them a bit of a framework to try and make sense of that and parse through the noise to the signal that they want to focus in on. So we cover the basic principles. We cover some foundational attributes of the building systems that they need to make sure they get in place to keep costs down, to do some of this fun stuff.
Right.
So try to give them a good breadth of content with lots of examples.
So let's go back to that fun stuff, right? Because you know, I'm a nerd. You know me for a long time.
Both are.
I think we're both nerds, right?
Yeah.
And the fun stuff is the fun stuff. But at the end of the day, if you are a commercial building owner, it's about the net operating income, right? And so when we talk about all that cool stuff, where do you think it makes sense to begin by just mapping out the technology, knowing what you have before you start jumping into, based on your years of doing this, versus jumping into that cool stuff?
Yeah, you really got to know what you're starting from. What is the current state? Most people with portfolios have some idea of some of the technology pieces. They may not know all of the details of the systems, or if they're decentralized, each asset may be making their own independent technology decisions. They may have a bit of a mess in their hands.
Right.
And if they're trying to scale out consistent outcomes of value or cost structure or experience, for good reason, to take advantage of this technology and its possibilities, if you don't know where you're starting from, it can be really hard to build out a path. Lachlan McCory, who leads our customer success team, used to be at Oxford Properties and always told us, strive for that brass ring. Like you gotta go for a goal, make sure that all the prop tech noise or whatever the topic du jour is doesn't distract you from trying to achieve that goal. Look for the technology solutions to try and get there, but make sure you've got a goal in mind to parse through what's possible. Otherwise, you can get inundated.
Yeah. So let's sort of go back to this idea of you have to have, I'll call it a North Star, the goal, right? And you're looking at a portfolio, you map out the technologies in your building, and there are a lot of tools, AI, some powered AI tools to go sort of discover what you have. I know we do quite a bit of that. And then we go and look at all the cool stuff, as you called it, and all focused on whatever those sub-goals are, right? Whether it's improving your tenant experience, whether it's improving the resident experience, whether it's just straight NOI, whether you're a corporation and you're looking to make your employees more productive. So we've sort of gone through that. And that middle piece, would you say, is the less automatable piece, like the first piece, we can use technology to do a lot of discovery of the tech. But we need to understand the processes, and we need to understand how the people are thinking, their behaviors. But we can really do the tech. That middle piece, that's where you need advice, right? You need that experience.
Yeah, well, and the technology is ubiquitous on some of these things that we're able to scan networks, we're able to get energy use, we're able to connect systems by APIs now. But the human element, you need to make sure you connect these two. We obviously have a long history of advisory, of coaching clients on what to do, on how to activate the automated work orders that the analytics tool set up. How do you make that real? How do you translate the recommendations of the tools or the software or now the AI engines and make that real at a property level, especially with the fragmentation of vendors and service providers or property managers, to say nothing of if the owner has buildings in separate funds and each asset manager.
Talk about complexity.
There's layers to this that you have to kind of peel back. Now the good news is it's achievable. You have to work through the stakeholders and who stands to gain and educating them sometimes on the value proposition of a particular service or a tool or a strategy. But the human element, you can't remove it. That's why we've built our service model the way we have, which is, yes, we have some tools to enable these things efficiently. So you're not just spending a fortune on a really smart person or big, heavy consulting engagement. Now you can make some of these outcomes real, enabled by technology to get you to your goals faster.
So let's sort of go back. We map out the tech and the processes and start to understand the people. We then get into prioritizing those unknowns that we call use cases, and we have catalogs, all that stuff. But then for lots of folks, whether you're an asset manager or a property management or owner, you're saying, well, that sounds like a lot of money that I don't have sitting in my budget. It sounds good, but what is you talk about these goals, how are we going to pay for it? So eventually we have to unlock some savings, would you say?
Yes. Yeah, so we flip over a lot of stones looking for those savings to help justify some of the coverage gaps in services or to enable a new service. You know this, and tell the audience, I'm a fisherman, and since I was a kid, I used to flip rocks looking for crayfish all the time because I'd use them for bait and go take them and catch some smallmouth bass. It'd be fun, right? Wherever I went, luckily, healthy ecosystem mostly, I found crayfish all the time. So I found bait. When we go into buildings, we're always finding those crayfish. Maybe a little obscure reference here, but we're always finding some of those savings so that we can then go catch the fish. So then we can drive outcomes. So sometimes that's telecom costs, sometimes that's crazy automation sequences that haven't been recommissioned in a decade and just wasteful energy, or crazy maintenance costs, or some service providers not meeting the standards of their systems, not patching. So then we just help the owner enforce some of those service contracts. Now their systems are going to run better.
We recently had some pretty cool, didn't we do a building, we found almost $100,000 in savings?
Yeah, a combination of kind of telecom savings, of management of some of that infrastructure, some of their internet service contracts, energy contracts, as well as repositioning some of their labor to do higher and better things as opposed to just changing a filter because the schedule said so. But $100,000 is material for one building.
Especially when you look at cap rates that are going to start contracting hopefully pretty soon, right? Yeah, but that's the big stuff. But there's also opportunities when you map out the technology and you start to prioritize those unknowns. You also find little savings, like you mentioned the telecom piece. Like I think another one of our buildings we worked with, we were able just to find like $10,000 in just redundant circuits, right? That are sitting in a building, which is a real common thing when the building flips over 5, 10.
You need that visibility to help build the business case. That's actually some of what we covered in boot camp, to try and make sure people understand that you have to find some of these things to justify some of new services or to cover some of these gaps on making systems more reliable or cyber secure, for example. So we make sure we show everybody what is the brass ring, to go back to that point of you're looking for efficiencies, trying to drive costs out of service contracts or energy use, or you're just running the building more efficiently. We're looking at how do we make sure that infrastructure is managed right with proper IT guidance on that fourth utility, the digital infrastructure, the digital plumbing of the building. Make sure there's someone with that skill set who knows how to manage challenge it. Don't just let vendors do what they will or don't do. And so there's also the experience. You want to add in experiential elements to show that this building is different, that attracts or retains, tenants or visitors or users of the space to be more productive. So we want to have our cake and eat it too with all these things, and it usually means you've got to find a way to justify it, especially if it's a new experience and it doesn't have a pure, easily measured ROI with a meter. Those can be a little more challenging, but so we try to give examples like we're doing here for owners, for occupiers, for even the technology providers to be able to frame that value better to owners. What does an asset manager care about? What does the property manager care about? What does the owner care about? And they may be three different people.
What does the IT department care about?
What does the IT department care about?
Depending on its sophistication level. So let's go back to that. I know we're getting towards the end of this, but let's go back.
Unsupervised. They're letting us talk too long again.
Andy and Rob unsupervised. It's really scary. But this is an interesting point. You talked about the people point. I talked about the people point. When we start to get visibility into, say, the building operations and so forth, that becomes a new insight into the governance aspect, because at least what you and I have talked about quite a bit over the years is the tech alone doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't. You have to have the right people, the education, you have to have the process around that. But that all comes together with governance. And I'm thinking that one of the big takeaways for folks listening to this, where it doesn't matter where you are on your journey, if you're just starting this brand new, or you have a portfolio of 1,500 buildings. If you don't have governance over the tech, the CRE tech, because we are CR tech specialists, would you say? If you don't have governance over the tech in the building, you're at risk of never being able to scale.
Right. It's really easy to make one building really smart. It's really hard to make 50 buildings the same level of smart. That's fragmentation you got to deal with, the different stakeholder mix, the ownership structures, to say nothing of the underpinning technology across buildings that were built at different times with different general contractors or acquired at different periods. Yeah, it can be a challenge to manage all that, but that's what we do for a living. It's surmountable. There's so many good proof points across this conference of people doing things successfully, but also keeping an eye on scaling it out. Anybody can do tech. I did it before in my former life. You can digitally stitch things together with duct tape and baling twine. But if someone asks you to do the exact same thing in a cost-effective time period at the building across the street, that's not so easy.
It's not so easy. So I'll go first. So, as CRE tech specialist, I would say as a takeaway for wherever you are on the journey, it doesn't have to be overwhelming, and all the different tech that gets thrown at you, if you have that brass ring, that North Star, that outcome that you're trying to achieve, the steps to get there can become a lot clearer, but you need to understand where you're starting from in order to figure out where you're going.
Yes. I'll actually paraphrase one of the boot camp attendees, Chris Panto, Metro National. He leads IT there. He basically said, start with understanding what you have. You can do that scan, you can get that inventory of systems, you can do it yourself. You can get an advisor, you can get an assessor, you can get a technology partner to really do a deep dive on some particular aspect if that's your goal. But start with understanding what can you build from, or what challenges do you have, or what cost challenges do you have, could you address, or cost opportunities, we'll say.
There we go.
Yeah, positive. So you can start with steps on a journey, just get going in a direction, and you'll learn lessons, you'll peel lessons learned out of conference attendees here, vendors, service providers, and get going on the journey. Start with visibility is usually what we recommend.
Well, I can't believe we've been doing the boot camp for as long as we have, and I hope folks listening to this get a little bit of a tidbit of what the boot camp can do. But if you weren't able to come to the boot camp, I'm sure Andy will be happy, or someone on his team would be happy to give you a recap.
We'll do it again. Yes.
Yeah, we'll do it again, but you can't just do it with AI either, right?
No. We want to get ready for AI, right? That's for the boot camp attendees, it is about getting ready with best practices and basic principles, and those haven't changed in the 10 years we've been doing this.
And neither has the need for cybersecurity.
No,
sometimes it really gets overshadowed with some of this other talk, right?
Fundamental, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day.